TvT now, finally. This is gonna be how I approach TvT. As some of you know, actually, for whatever reason on the NA server, I have an 85% winner against Terran. I don't know why, but for some reason, I personally feel like it's my strongest matchup, but across all the servers, TvT is my best matchup, hands down. So I'm gonna do a video on it. It's been requested by a few people who are having trouble with some TvT, usually like mid-game stuff. And got a quick little replay for us here. Pretty much, I just want to first say that I play a lot of double gas. I am not a Rax expand person. And my 2-gas build of choice is 2 Reaper into Cyclone. If you don't know the build, it's actually very safe. Very, very, very safe build. Exactly how it sounds. 2 Reapers, build a factory, or a tech level on the factory, and you go into Cyclone. And here we do 16, 17 gas, of course. I see that some people still do 15 gas first. We kind of moved away from that. If you do it that way, you end up being behind a few SCVs. Here I'm scouting out. I see 2 gases. So the build looks like mine. I will lose this SCV, so I did stay there a little bit too long. But if I hadn't lost that SCV, what you would actually do with that worker is, by the time that worker comes back, you'd actually have enough minerals to build your natural. And you wouldn't use this SCV because you'll see here in just a minute. If you wait until the factory SCV is done, you're already going to have like 500 minerals, and you're going to have too many minerals. And your CC would be late. So, just like good roll there. Here, I'm just micing out with the Reaper. I see I go into Tech Lab. And so, basically here, what I do, and I had this conversation with Thermal actually, for those of you who are big Thermi fans. And he thinks it's actually, because you only have 2 Reapers at this point. And if your opponent goes like more than 2 Reaper, 2 Reaper Hellion, or something like that, you can't really defend with 2 Reapers, right? You have to go into your base either way. So, instead of like having your Reapers do nothing, why don't you just send them across the map? Sometimes you won't be able, sometimes your opponent will just stay home with the Reapers and the Hellions, and you don't really do anything. But regardless, I guess it is a little bit of a risk. But that's what I like to do here. So you'll see he goes around here, and I'm going to go into his main. Or I'm going to go into his main. And then, like I said, here, at this point here, he kills this worker, yes, but he also can't really go up here. And now I have plenty of opportunities here to kill some SCVs. And he has to go back, because this Cyclone is going to take a while. So, here I'm going to kill a bunch of workers. Very well done. I'm going to be ahead here quite a bit. Right there. Bam. Just like that. Already very ahead. So if you like to play aggressive but still a little bit safe, this is a good build for you to do. At this point, knowing that I have a lead, and based on what I've scouted, which is, at first I would have guessed that maybe he was going to go tank drop, but because I saw the tech lab here at the very last minute, I decided that I saw that he's not doing tank drop. So actually my response here is to build a second Cyclone, and to keep the second Cyclone. With the second Cyclone, you're going to be behind 1 tank. So as you can see here, if we look at the units, he has 1 Cyclone, or I have 1 Cyclone, he has 1 Cyclone. And if I build a second Cyclone, I will be behind 1 tank. Okay, assuming that my opponent builds tanks consistently, I will be behind 1 tank. Okay, so if my opponent is smart and sees that I have 2 Cyclones on the map, that will be kind of like one of the first things they think of, is that an advantage that I have in this situation is map control. But because I built 2 Cyclones, they would have an advantage with having 1 extra tank. So those are like the little things that kind of matter, and that's how you scout in TvT. That's how you can gauge out how far ahead you are, how far behind you are, what advantages and disadvantages you have, and this would be one of them. So here I actually get pretty lucky. He's very aggressive with this, but I saved both my Cyclones. This is overall very good positioning here. You always want to sit on your ramp if you don't know what's happening. You're just less likely to use units, as you can see there. And now that I have 2 Cyclones to his 0 Cyclones, I'm very confident in going out on the map. Now, I do want to add just one little thing. This is more meta-gamey than anything. If for whatever reason you are playing someone who likes to send older Cyclones across the map, you can actually build a Banshee. And this is something Bien does a lot. He'll just send it around this way, and you start killing workers because their Cyclones are on the other side of the map. So, like, obviously in that scenario, you would be behind a Raven about like 3/4 of a Raven, so then like you'd have to kill some workers, but just like little things you can do. But here now I'm gonna be ahead they're gonna have two. I'm gonna have 2 ravens to his 1 raven, and I am behind on tanks, but I do have map control with the 2 cyclone. So because I know I'm ahead, for numerous reasons. Number 1, I kill a lot of workers. Number 2, I got a free cyclone. Okay, and I killed the reapers and the hellion that he had. So at this point here, something that I really like to do is play aggressive. And it's something that I learned a lot playing on the Korean server in TvTs. Is I hate it when people contain me like this. And it's overall a very good play to keep like progressing your lead. So 30cc on location. I'm gonna sit around outside here. You don't even. You'll see like I'm aggressive with this, but you don't need to. You can literally just sit back here. You know, I'm building Vikings before him. I could just rally my Vikings across the map, and my opponent doesn't even have their 2nd Raven done. And I'll just chill here. I'll really just chill here. So here I'll get a little bit greedy. I'm trying to hit this these Marines with this tank. I get a little bit closer here. And then here. The reason why I do this is because I noticed that my opponent was unsieged. Now, what I didn't notice was that they had another tank up there. But if you actually think about what I mentioned earlier, I have 2 tanks, which means my opponent should have 3 tanks. So I actually should have already known that that was going to be the case, right? Assuming that my opponent wasn't supply blocked. So, you know, if you're in my position and you think about that, then you would realize maybe I shouldn't push in because I'm down a tank, right? So I go in here, I matrix. In this scenario, I matrixed because the 2 tanks were sieging. If the 2 tanks were not sieging, I would have put auto turrets. So if you're wondering about what to use in these kinds of scenarios, my tank was already sieged, but my opponent's tanks were sieging, which means that my tank is already going to be popping off shots and his won't be. So I'm just going to matrix his 2 tanks, and my tank is still going to be firing. Here, I think that if you just matrixed my tank here, this could have gone a bit better for him. As you can see, these auto turrets are not really doing anything. I think he dropped them to protect these tanks, right? So that's kind of like how you can finesse it out. Now at this point here, you know, micro becomes a factor, and now we're even on tanks. So actually, I'm ahead of tank because I'll have another one coming out here. But on the battlefield, at least here, I'm ahead 2 tanks, and now I'm progressing my lead, right? My opponent hasn't swapped add-ons. They're floating a lot of money, and this is like very natural. Like this happens to me too if I'm the one getting contained. It's very, very common. You're so focused on just defending everything that you know, you got to worry about that while trying to do all your macro. And it's just like, you have to keep tabs on my army. Like, you don't know if I'm going to keep pushing. It's just overall very, very uncomfortable situation. And perhaps that's like really good. You know, that's something you want to be in. I feel like this is so loud. Hopefully this doesn't actually mess up my video. I'm so sorry. But all right, so here I'm training out very well. They overextended, so that's nice. Here at this point, I don't need to stay here any longer. I have traded very well. I've killed ravens. I still have this raven, actually. I should have just kept that alive. My 3rd base is up and running. You know, you can kind of check if they have theirs. If they just landed it by any chance, like, behind you. Yeah, you can see, like, I don't need to keep going in. Because the thing is that if you keep trying to press the issue, it's not so much that you will throw the game or you won't win the game necessarily, but your transition becomes a lot harder to do because the multitasking increases. So I'd rather just sit kind of far back here and control this for a bit. But, you know, I can squeeze in these extra racks. I can squeeze in these eBays, build some workers. I lose that cyclone there, but that's okay. So here I am actually throwing unnecessary units I don't need to throw. So, you know, learn from my mistakes, please, people. I don't need to be here any longer. And perhaps I progressed the game more than it should have been because, or longer than it should have been because of this reason. But finally go back here. Obviously, again, like I said, I'm miles ahead. Worker count's up. He doesn't even have the engineering bays running. This is like when you're ahead, knowing that you're ahead. One of the cool things you can do is like instead of having your Vikings with your army, like, I already have this really good position on the sensor tower where I can see a lot of stuff. Maybe what I'm missing here is like a marine here and perhaps a marine here. But in these scenarios, maybe like you can build I like to build an auto turret, or I mean not a missile turret here. And then you can position your Vikings in this airspace, because one of the ways my opponent can come back into this game is by doom dropping me, right? Like we've all had it happen before. We've done it to somebody where we doom drop or they doom drop us and we just die. So yeah, that's something that you could do. So here I'm gonna keep pressing my lead. I wanted to go this way because there was no vision, but the sensor tower came up just in time. So overall, I would say a good call by my opponent. Yeah, but I'm just continuing my lead. I'm getting 2-2. You'll see here, I'm very patient. I know that I'm ahead, but I don't need to run into 5 tanks, right? Like, I'll just die. Very unnecessary. So don't need to do that at all. So yeah, like here, I'll do this drop knowing that my opponent's army's here. Sneak in a drop, you know, snipe the E-base. I will lose this, unfortunately. And this actually gets very dicey. He did the right thing there by positioning his Vikings, so... but, you know, I still have a 4th base. I'm still pumping out units, so... Even for me, like, TvT can be pretty tough in that regard. If your opponent's playing very well defensively, you know, try to find an opening. Try to maneuver around. Like I said earlier, if, like, you're here and their whole army's there, try to sneak in a drop or something like that. Eventually, we just kind of trade out. I don't want to make this video too long, but what you'll see here is I just get 2-2, and then I have a pretty nice upgrade advantage, and I also saw these medevacs flying across through that scan. And then I never move my Vikings, right? Never move your Vikings there. Just leave them. Unless you have a missile turret ring, you don't need to do that. You don't need to move them, so just leave them there until you can actually secure that with something other than the Vikings, because, like I said, the drop potential is always there, and it's just a very easy way to lose a TvT that you're winning. And then here we're just gonna get a no GG. But yeah, guys, so that's honestly, I'm pretty happy that this video is pretty fast. I know I talked a lot, but I'll make sure to do one on like later game stuff and touch upon other scenarios. But I hope this kind of helps a little bit on understanding how to attack in TvT and how to spot your advantages and your disadvantages. I know that a question that I was getting asked a bit frequently was, I don't know what to do after I put my 3rd command center. And you know, sometimes it's true, like sometimes in TvT, if your opponent just wants to sit on their ass, like, you have to play that game out. And you can try to end the game sooner, but like I said, you're always at risk of throwing the game that way. If you kind of like pull all your cards into one hand, you know, Doom Drop doesn't go right, to take a really bad fight because you overextended it, it can change the tide completely. So yeah, so that's gonna be it for me, boys. Thanks for checking out my video. Please make sure to like, subscribe, comment, tell me you love me. I don't know, tell me you hate me, whatever it is you want to do, and I'll see you guys for the next video. Deuces.